Hi, GenderBlenders. Welcome to week 76. And this week's topic is, since we described our typical day in general last week, how about describing your typical day at work? What do you do for a living? And what keeps you at it? So this is kind of a follow-on from last week's questions. And I'd like to talk about what I do in a little bit more detail this week. I'm Steffi, and as you folks know, I'm an electrical engineer. And this job is somewhat unusual for a girl. You see, electrical engineers can be broken into hardware engineers, software engineers, analog, digital, chip designers, datacom, telecom, consumer electronics, power engineers, all kinds of different forms of electrical engineering, depending upon what your particular specialty happens to be. It's that diverse of a field. And when I graduated in college, back, I think, right before the dinosaurs got extinct, there were a couple of hundred. I graduated from Carnegie Mellon University, a relatively well-known engineering school. And there was a couple hundred electrical engineers in our graduating class, and of that there was exactly 2 women. So it's quite unusual. That's increased now, but it's still maybe only 10 or 15% at best of the field. And primarily those folks are in the field of software. Most of the women that go into engineering end up going into software development, or end up going, which is a related field, computer science, or computer hardware engineering, environmental engineering, that sort of thing. Very rare to find a girl in my particular subfields of engineering, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But that's very rare, so in some sense I consider myself very lucky to be in the field that I am. My fields of concentration are analog, datacom, and telecom. If you'll notice in the background here has been a lot of vacuum tube audio stuff, which is kind of audio and analog engineering with a vengeance. The speakers that you kind of see in the back, there's one that I'm pointing to, there's the other one, and the ones below it. I'm having a hard time. And below it over there are homemade, what's called transmission line speakers. Abbreviated T-lines, so T-lines from a T-girl. Hey, wait a minute, that maybe work. Anyway, that's my fields of concentration are those kinds of things. I've worked at Motorola, I've worked at Ericsson, Fujitsu, a little company called Veralink, a little company called Digital Transmission Systems, Applied Digital Access, which was bought by a company called TTC and rebranded into the name Acterna. Acterna was subsequently bought by JDSU, so that went through a whole series of change. My current job is, of course, at SeekTech, and I told you a little bit about that last week. There's a couple of the products that we make. This thing here is called a Q-ring, and this thing here is called a Scout locator. And the other thing that I have on my little table here that I have shown up is, I do this for hobby. This is some of my vacuum tube audio. This is one of the little vacuum tube audio amplifiers. There's a total of 4 vacuum tubes here. 2 of them happen to have plate caps on them. That's what these little funny things are for, is to provide connectivity to what's called the plate or the anode of the circuit. And that's just a very small little amplifier. So that's some of the things that I do for a living. At DTS and Acterna, both, I telecommuted or worked out of my house. When I was working at DTS, they're located primarily in Atlanta, Georgia, or were located. They don't exist anymore. The telecom kind of crunch that hit in the early 2000s kind of did them in. But when I worked at DTS, I telecommuted. So, and at the time, I happened to be living in Portland, Oregon. So I'd spend a week in Portland. And I maintain a full lab at home. So all of this stuff that I do here for myself, I do because I have a lot of test equipment and things like that. And I can design and analyze and evaluate and change and modify and things like that right here at home. I've done that my entire career. In a previous house, I had what's called a screen room. The purpose of that is to prevent RF from entering or exiting. Also had at one point in time a set of concrete speaker enclosures for my hi-fi equipment. I don't kind of do that anymore, but I do get into the hi-fi things, as you can see. My current job at SeekTech, I do RF and low-frequency analog design. The low frequencies, like, for example, in here we have relatively low frequency. It's supersonic, but it's relatively low frequencies as radio frequencies go. Receivers and very low noise amplifiers that we have to deal with. So I do some of that stuff. And likewise on the transmitter side, same kind of a thing. You saw the little radio. My radio disappeared. You saw the little radio that I was developing, and that's very high frequency stuff. It's 1 gigahertz kind of thing. And so I do that as well. So I do some RF work. And Datacom, I provide that level of expertise of being able to provide digital transmission at relatively high rates going through analog lines. See, that's the tie-in there. And I'm doing some what's called QAM development. And I just did a high-speed analysis for 4-phase PSK. And I know I'm using jargon, but I just can't help it. I love my current job. I just absolutely love it. I get to do lots of things. I have a great boss. I spend a lot of time at work. I've told you that. But I'm appreciating I'm given a lot of freedom. What keeps me at it? I passionately and honestly love my work. If I were to win the lottery and be instantly wealthy, I'd still work where I work. I enjoy it that much. So what's the fairy tale that would change that? So what keeps me at it? I love my job. That's what keeps me at it. So what kind of fairy tale could change things and make me not do that anymore? I can only think of one. When I was preparing for this video, see, this is after work. I did this, I recorded this video Monday afternoon after I got home from work. I will upload it at work on Thursday morning. See, I get a lot of freedom because they have a faster internet connection than I do here at home. But that will be a very interesting thing too. But the fairy tale that would have to happen for me to change things is if somebody could wave their magic wand and I could have children, because that's what I miss. And if I met the right guy, I'd stay home, have a litter of kids, and raise them. I would love to do that. I missed out on that in my life. I would just love to do that. And that's about the only thing that would stop me from my job. So I hope this has been entertaining. This is Steffi saying so long until next week. Bye-bye.